my little girl was about 3 or 4 years old, and just felt there was something missing in my life. Couldn't really understand what it was. We'd got money in the bank and a nice car, and we went on lovely holidays, and it was all very lovely. But it wasn't quite enough, and I didn't know what that enough was.
Well, welcome to another of our faith conversations, and we're talking about coming to know Jesus and the difference he makes in people's lives. Today I'm joined by Mandy. It's lovely to have you with us.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
So we've been chatting a little bit before this about some of how you came to know Jesus. Do you want to tell us a bit of that story?
Well, it happened a long time ago originally, sort of dabbling a little bit as teenagers and then moved away. But I was living in Germany, and my little girl was about 3 or 4 years old, and just felt there was something missing in my life. Couldn't really understand what it was. We'd got money in the bank and a nice car, and we went on lovely holidays, and it was all very lovely. But it wasn't quite enough, and I didn't know what that enough was. And then I kind of remembered back to my sort of teenage days of dabbling in prayer and sort of having a look at that, and wondered if that was where I should be. So I kind of reluctantly wandered down to the local church, sat at the back, as you do, and listened to this really quite hellfire brimstone service, which was quite scary, but just touched something. And I didn't know what that something was. So thought, right, okay, we'll give this a chance, and let's give it maybe another 2 or 3 weeks and see how we go. And people were very friendly and welcoming, and here I am, sort of 20 odd years later. It was the start of something very strange, and it was just, I was drawn to that place, drawn to the teaching, drawn to the wonderful people that were there and who were really friendly. And when you're feeling quite sort of awkward about being in a place where you're not familiar with, these people helped me to be part of that. And it grew and it grew, and I became part of a Bible study group and helped out with the church coffee mornings and all sorts of bits and pieces that went off, and the rest, they say, is kind of history, really. But that's how it started, really. Just that big something that was missing. And I think today that big something has definitely been filled.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a voyage of discovery, I think.
So you're saying it's something in your teenage years that brought you back to church. What was it about church that made you go, this might actually answer this? It wouldn't be everyone's first choice. They might try all sorts of other things.
No. Do you know, I honestly don't know. But I knew that all these lovely things that I'd got, I'd got a lovely daughter, I'd got this great life. My then husband was in the military, and we led a really exciting and hard-working life, which was very different. And we'd got a nice car, and like I say, we had money in the bank, and it just all seemed to be a bit empty. And I don't know what drew me to church, which is really strange. But what I do remember is at sort of 14 or 15 years old, when my friend and I were taking part in little prayer groups and things. I remember back then that we felt a belonging and a togetherness, which is what I wasn't feeling at the time when I realised that this big hole had appeared in my life, which was probably there all along. I just realised that it was there, and it was very apparent. So I think it was probably that actually drew me to church, the recollection of that warmth and togetherness and that belonging, the sense of belonging, which sometimes you don't really get when you're living in a military environment.
Yeah. So especially as a spouse, it's all set up for, for everyone else.
Very much so.
But you're when we were chatting, you're saying you had an encounter with one of your then husband's colleagues on the way to church.
Oh, yes. I'd not long had my second child, and my son was probably, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks old. And there I was with said baby in buggy, pushchair, and off I went to church this Sunday morning. So off I trundled down, and church was literally 5 minutes away. So I was walking along. It was a beautiful sunny morning, I do remember. And I remember my husband's boss, and I saw him in the car and waved to him, and he stopped. And he says, "Oh, hi, Mandy, where are you going?" And I said, "Oh, hi, Alex, I'm off to church." And he just kind of recoiled a bit and went, "Oh." And of course, then I was a little confrontational, shall we say. So I said, "Oh." He says, "Well, I didn't actually put you down as to be someone who went to church." So again, being slightly confrontational, I said, "So what do you imagine these people who go to church to be?" And he says, "Well, I don't really know." And actually, as he stammered and became incredibly awkward, said, "Oh, but I would be going to church, but I'm actually rather busy." And I said, "You don't have to answer to me. It's not for me to judge, that's up to you." And, he sort of looked at me a bit awkward and then, said his farewells and off he went. And I kind of wandered away thinking, what was that all about? But it was rather a strange moment, I must admit, to be classed as somebody who doesn't go to church. And I still fail to see what he classed as those people who went to church. It was really bizarre.
Yeah, because I suppose, what do you think people think the sort of people who come to church are? Because I don't think either of us are what people would imagine.
No.
Necessarily.
If I wasn't a churchgoer, I would say, well, it would be the usual, wearing a hat and the twin set and pearls and all that sort of thing. But, I've met all sorts of different people in church. I'm not exactly run-of-the-mill myself. I wander around with purple hair for a start, which not a lot of people do. But I don't think it really matters. I don't think it really matters who you are, because everybody is welcome.
No, absolutely. So what's kept you hooked in? Because obviously you're not in Germany now. You're in currently rainy South Wales.
Well, it's been an interesting journey, I must admit. I came back from Germany in 2004 and felt slightly lost and needed to belong again. So found myself a church family, which was just around the corner from where my dad lived. And they were brilliant. And I didn't really want to go back to church, and I don't know why. There was something about being in that place that just said that I shouldn't be there. So after a couple of weeks of wandering past this church every day, taking my son to school, again, there's that call, there's that pull. And I plucked up the courage to go in on a Wednesday morning to take part in a Wednesday Eucharist. And I sat at the back, out of the way, as you do. And there were maybe only 6 or 7 of us in the church, and I was made to feel so incredibly welcome. There was no, who are you, where have you come from, none of that. It's lovely to see you. Come and have a cup of coffee with us afterwards. And I just kind of went, wow, these guys are wonderful. And that started me coming back into that church family again. So I started attending church again at this particular church. And that kind of blossomed a little bit. The couple that ran the church, husband and wife, both priests. One was an ex-police officer, and a little bit of a bully, but in a nice way. Lovely lady. I love her to bits. And she actually married Gareth and myself. She approached me after probably 6 months or so and said, Mandy, have you ever thought about being a priest? At which point I said, Rosie, don't be so stupid. Laughed it off, thought nothing of it. And then maybe 3 months after that, her husband came to me and said, Mandy, have you ever thought about being a priest? And I was like, Eric, have you been talking to Rosie? And he's like, no. I said, I think you might have done. No, I haven't. Yeah, no, I've not thought about it. And don't be so silly, go away. So that's how it kind of started, and thought nothing of it. Got married, moved to Reading, had a bit of time there because my husband now was in the military. So I moved from Reading to Bristol and took part in all sorts of different courses, Growing Disciples and Christianity Explored, and Just for Starters, and just learned a bit more about who I was and what my faith was. And then Gareth left the military. We moved to Wales just before, and it kind of started all over again. And after taking part in several different sort of aspects of worship, I got more and more drawn in and felt that this is where I belonged and this is where I should be. And went to my priest, spoke to him and said, I think I should be doing a bit more. And his answer to me was, I'm really glad you said that. And then went forward for ordination, and next month will be the big day.
It's coming soon, isn't it?
It's come round. It seems to have started a long, long, long time ago. And then all of a sudden it's here, which is incredibly scary, but quite exciting at the same time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what, you said you were sort of exploring more about what made you want to do lots of courses to sort of dig in and explore. What was it you were sort of doing there?
I think I was just learning more about myself more than anything, and how my relationship with God has grown, has developed, has changed really, because I've become to understand what he wants from me, and where he needs me to go. And I think after a sort of 20-year-long argument with God of, Mandy, do you think you should be doing this? And I'm going, no, don't be silly. And then he just leaves it lie a little bit, and then he'll poke you in the back of the head again. Mandy, do you think you should be doing this? No, that's not, don't be silly, I'm not doing that. And in the end, you just go, okay, I've explored. I'm trying to explain, and I think I will always try to explain of where my relationship is, because it does change. You kind of have to give up and let God take the reins. And I think that's what I was trying to do. What I was trying to figure out where God wanted me to be. And I'm a bit stubborn, so I disagree and argue and push back just slightly.
We got you there in the end.
He did, because he perseveres.
Yes. He knows us best.
Doesn't he just?
Knows how best to approach us. Yeah. So if someone's been listening to our conversation, perhaps some of what you've said has resonated, maybe they sort of feel that there's something missing, they're not quite sure what it is. Maybe church isn't their first port of call. Maybe it is, they're watching this. And what would you say to them?
Even if you think church is not your first port of call, go anyway. And if you go to a church and you find that something in there, something within that service, or something that anybody has said, whether it's a priest or a lay person, that tiny little something, if it just resonates with you, but maybe the rest of the service doesn't, then find a different church and keep going until you find that you can settle in a place. Because it might give you the answers that you need, it might not. But if you never go, you'll never know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's been really, really good to chat with you and hear some of your story. Yeah, no, thank you very much.
It's not a problem. It's been absolutely my pleasure.